the so people can watch this after the rapture. What do you think? All right, it's good to have it recorded to help out our friends who didn't join us in the rapture. So welcome everyone to the class 18, the Biblical Foundation, Genesis, the Book of Beginnings. And we're in the incredible Garden of Eden, which, remember, it's not an allegory, it's not a myth, it's not a fable, it's a historical fact. If you believe in Jesus Christ, you have to believe in Genesis, the Garden of Eden, creation, right? Because he said directly that they were facts. So either you believe Jesus Christ and believe in all of Genesis as historic fact, or you believe Jesus was a liar. So it's rather easy to choose, but unfortunately, hundreds of millions of Christians have a difficult time deciding. Well, is Genesis really true? Even if Jesus says it is true, I don't know. I'm not sure you can be a Christian and have those kind of doubts. So let's go ahead. We're reviewing what we covered a short 2 weeks ago. And so let's start. Monica, can you please read Genesis 3:12 in English for us?
Okay. And the man said, the woman whom thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat.
Okay, how sad. Let me try that in Portuguese. Então disse Adão, a mulher que me deste por companheira, ela me deu da árvore e comi. Uh-oh. So obviously the man is Adam, speaking of Eve, the woman. And so, Emily, can you please read question A?
This is the first example in human history of what tendency?
Okay, so what did Adam just do? What did Adam just do when he replied to God? The woman whom thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat. Well, he shifted blame. Okay. Another way, and because the phrase is both the same in English and Portuguese, he pointed the finger. Right? He pointed the finger. It's like, hey, you gave her to me, so your fault, God, and she did this. And then he finally says at the end, and I did eat. Okay, but hey, it's really it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. So let's continue. So Genesis 3:13. Lucas, can you please read Genesis 3:13 in English, please?
And the Lord God said unto the woman, what is this that thou hast done? And the woman said, the serpent beguiled me, and I did eat.
Lucas, excellent pronunciation. You have a gift from the Holy Spirit. You read English so well. Thank you. So here we are. And let me repeat that in Portuguese and try to read it as well in Portuguese as Lucas did in English. E disse o Senhor Deus à mulher, por que fizeste isto? E disse a mulher, a serpente me enganou, e eu comi. Okay, and so Pedro, please read question B. So we're reviewing the material we studied 2 weeks ago.
This is the second example of what human tendency.
So what are the two names for what we said this tendency is?
Shift lane.
Correct?
Shift lane. Okay.
Yeah.
And to point to the other point.
Point what? Point the finger. Point the
Finger.
finger. Okay, so finger pointing and shift blaming. Excellent. And so, okay, so Ellington, can you please read question C in English?
Was excused was better.
Okay, so this question caused some controversy last time, but that's okay. What do you all think? What do you all think? Who, it's an excuse. And remember, I don't want to have to give God an excuse. All right, I prefer not to give God an excuse. All right. But whose excuse was better, Adam's or Eve's?
I don't know.
Now, is everyone going to be like very fair today, even balanced? Like no one was like better or worse. They're both equally. Well, I'll share. What do you think, Emily?
I think neither.
Okay, so I think there's an innate Brazilian tendency to want to be nice to people, even when they're erring, they're in error. So I tend to think that Eve's excuse was better. And why? Because she was beguiled. And beguiled is another way to say she was deceived. Okay? Because the serpent beguiled Eve, as she claims. Did the serpent beguile Adam? No. So another way to think of it is that the serpent deceived Eve. The serpent, neither the serpent nor Eve beguiled or fooled Adam. He didn't make he didn't get, oh, you have to do this, and he had to make a sudden decision. He chose disobedience to God outright. He wasn't deceived, he wasn't beguiled, he wasn't fooled. He decided. And as we know, or as you know, my opinion, the Bible gives very little background, a little explanation, but it sounds like he could not imagine life in the Garden of Eden without Eve. I guess he could imagine it without God, but he could not imagine it without Eve. That was how important she had become to him, apparently. So let's continue on. So Monica, can you please read Genesis 3:14 to 15? Genesis 3:14 to 15.
Okay. And the Lord God said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shall thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put an enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel.
Very good. Thank you. So Emily helped you with the thy. It's an old English word. So instead of thee, it's thy, or
Right.
your is the modern equivalent. And then there's one other word, enmity. And that's yeah. So when there's those two consonants like that, sometimes you have to separate. So enmity.
Enmity.
So let me try this in Portuguese. Então o Senhor Deus disse à serpente: Porquanto fizeste isto, maldita serás mais que toda a ferra, e mais que todos os animais do campo. Sobre o teu ventre andarás, e pó comerás todos os dias da tua vida. E porém inimizade entre ti e a mulher, e entre a tua semente e a sua semente. Esta te ferirá a cabeça, e tu lhe ferirás o calcanhar. Okay, wow, more power verses. My goodness. So let's go to question D. So Emily, question D in English, please.
Verse 15 is considered the first major prophecy of the Bible. What about?
Okay. Now remember, some of you who've taken some of my courses, I believe the first verse, the first phrase of the Bible is a prophecy. Do you remember in English what the first three words of the Bible are? Genesis 1:1.
In the beginning.
Yeah, and why might that be a prophecy?
I don't know.
Well,
About Christ.
okay, in the beginning. Well, it's true. In the beginning, Jesus
Okay,
Christ.
there's an end.
Absolutely right. Okay, it's
Okay.
implied. All right. If God starts by saying in the beginning, that tends to be, if you start with a beginning, you have an ending. So anyway, that's just it's kind of a funny, almost prophecy. But the first real solid prophecy is the verse we just read, specifically verse 15. And so what is that about? Well, it's a prophecy of what?
It's about the coming Messiah.
Absolutely right.
Christ.
So it's the first reference to Jesus Christ, we believe. And where do you see it? How is he referred to? So where do you see, you're on mute, Emily. Where do you see the Messiah is referred to? What word makes you believe that?
Her seed.
Yes. Okay. And then it doesn't just prophesize the Messiah, it also prophesies
The Antichrist.
yeah, and it kind of prophesizes the entire Bible.
Yeah.
Right? Because it gives us the end as well. Maybe I'm jumping ahead in terms of but but anyway, it's an incredible verse, but absolutely right. So Jesus Christ, or the Messiah. Then Lucas, can you please read? And sorry, I've been speaking a little quickly. Lucas, I get excited. Lucas, can you please read question E in English?
What is the first word of the prophecy and why?
Very good. And that fourth word is strangest. Okay, so you remember that. So this is strange.
Strange.
And then it's the superlative. There's like strange, stranger, strangest. Very good.
Strangest.
Okay, so what is the strangest word of the prophecy that we just read? Emily just said it. She's on mute now. Well, do you remember what word do you think that is, Lucas or Pedro? What's the strangest word of verse 15? You remember what Emily just said? It's the word referring to Jesus Christ. And which word is that?
Feet.
Correct. And specifically, it speaks of her seed, so the woman's seed. And why is that strange? So why is seed strange? Particularly, does a woman normally have seed? No. Men have seed. Women have eggs. Okay. So
It's different.
say it again.
It's different.
It is different. And so again, every word of the Bible is important. And so we believe this implies the virgin birth. Okay, so it's like the woman, eventually Maria, somehow a seed? Well, it's a virgin birth. So there's no actual seed from a man because it was not a normal marriage. She was a virgin. She knew no man, as the Bible says. She knew no man. So it implies the virgin birth, and which is very interesting. So now we're going to continue with some slightly new material. And so, Pedro, can you please read question 1 in English?
What might bruise thy head and bruise his heel signify?
Okay, what do you think? Every word is important. And so God is saying, bruise thy head. When he says bruise thy head, he's speaking to who? To the serpent. So somehow the serpent's head will be bruised and then bruise his heel. Well, we now know that her seed refers to Jesus Christ. So this is bruises Jesus Christ's heel. So why does the Bible put it that way? What do you think it means?
I think means they died. They
Okay.
died.
Which one? Which one? Do both mean if you get bruised in the head or bruised in the heel, you die?
For Jesus, the die that he had here in earth. And for the serpent, the eternal die.
Yeah. Well, you're right. In that sense, both die, but it seems to imply that bruising thy head is a worse wound, and it's a wound to death. And so, yes, so the Antichrist, filled by Satan, will eventually go to his eternal death and condemnation. Okay, so whereas bruise his heel, bruising Jesus's heel, okay, it's not, that's an injury, but to have an injury on your heel is rarely grave. Okay, rarely very serious. So it's true, Jesus actually is killed, but he's resurrected in 3 days. And so that's so we go, oh, okay. So in figurative terms, bruising the head is a mortal wound, whereas bruising the heel is a temporary wound, and Jesus is in the grave. His body is in the grave for only 3 days. So again, a very powerful verse with so much meaning in it. Okay, so Ellington, can you please read question 2 in English?
What word do you think some Catholic Bibles charge to support their doctrine.
Okay, thank you. Now remember, a word in English often has the emphasis early. So you were saying Catholic a little more in the Portuguese way, when in English it's Catholic,
Catholic.
right? So the emphasis comes up to the front in many times. When the word is written almost the same way, the emphasis is a little different. So what do you think? This is a strange question. So look at that verse 15, and I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and thy seed and her seed, and it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Can you imagine where the Catholic Church might change a word for their purposes?
I don't imagine.
Okay, Emily, any ideas?
I think her seed.
Oh.
Did they actually change it in their version?
Well, I'm not sure that they change her seed. Remember, modern Bibles don't use seed. They lose that prophetic subtlety. They talk about generation, other things. But no, instead of saying thou shalt bruise his heel, because remember, God is speaking to Eve. And we know that, but it's really speaking to her progeny, to who comes after a long lineage. From Eve is Jesus Christ. No, I'm sorry, thou. I'm sorry. It shall, I got confused. It shall bruise thy head, okay, and thou shalt bruise his heel. So what some Catholic Bibles say is put in the word Mary. Okay, and Mary shall bruise thy head.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so you have
That's
to watch
terrible.
out. You have to watch out. Catholic Bibles can be very tricky, very tricky. Okay, so they in fact they have emblems. They have emblems that show Mary, right? The blasphemously termed the mother of God, with her foot on top of the serpent. All right.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, bruising the serpent's head. All right, so they want to elevate Mary to God status and as the savior of humankind. Ow, that's just horrible. I don't think Jesus Christ is very happy about that. I don't think he was very happy about that. Okay, so Monica.
Neither Mary.
Sorry, Emily.
Neither Mary, I think.
Okay, that's true. She's dead, of course, but you're right. Her soul is her soul is definitely in heaven. Okay, so Monica, can you please read question 3, please?
Okay. Given who we believe her seed refers to, who might thy seed represent?
Okay, I think we kind of answered this, but what do you think? It's, there's several options. What do you think? Thy seed represents who? So it's the serpent's seed, but who is the serpent's seed?
Satan.
Well, and that's possible. Most would answer the Antichrist. Okay, because if it's hard for Satan to be his own seed, his own descendant. But you're actually, and that's why there's a little bit of ambiguity here, because we believe, ambiguity. We believe that at a certain point, the Antichrist is bodily taken over by Satan. Okay, so in a sense, yes, Satan's seed becomes somehow Satan in the body of a man. And there's another interesting thought that's comes out of this, because her seed, obviously there is a direct lineage. If you think of Satan, if he has a direct lineage, then it implies that the Antichrist somehow has Satan's blood. And that is then kind of an interesting query. All right, so who knows? Who knows? That
I
might
was thinking also, do you think that that might be a reflection of the gospel about the cross?
yes. In what way?
At the same time, when it seems that when Satan he thought that he would overcome
Mhm,
Jesus on the cross,
mhm,
but then Jesus resurrected,
mhm.
and in a sense he killed the serpent in that sense.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Remember, I think, death, where is thy sting?
yes, that verse.
And also that Satan somehow thought he was victorious. He was so blinded. He thought the crucifixion represented a victory, when the crucifixion plus the resurrection was the greatest defeat possible for Satan, because death was conquered.
Mhm.
So I agree. And that gets perhaps back more to the bruise thy head and bruise his heel. But anyway, so this verse has many interesting implications. Well, we can study it for a long time, and we will in eternity in heaven. So Emily, can you please read Genesis 3:16 in English?
Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee.
Okay, beautifully spoken, and what a powerful verse, because it's the first. We already saw the punishment of the serpent, that he would be on his belly and he would eat dust, but this is the first punishment that really makes a difference to humankind, and it's the punishment for women. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to try it in Portuguese first. E a mulher disse: multiplicarei grandemente a tua dor e a tua concessão. Com dor darás à luz filhos, e o teu desejo será para o teu marido, e ele te dominará. Ouch. Okay, let's look at this, because this is a very profound verse, and let's see what kind of implications it might have. So question 4, Lucas, can you please read question 4 in English?
How and why are women's children brought forth after the fall?
Okay, what do you think? So remember, this is the first part of the punishment, and God is telling Eve that she and her all female descendants, that bringing forth children, giving birth to children, is now different. How is it different?
Because of the added pain.
Okay, and so I agree with you entirely. And where do you think, what word implies pain in the actual verse?
Sorrow. I
Yep,
will greatly multiply thy sorrow.
exactly. Okay, so sorrow implies that she is not happy during the process. And so And why is that different? It's hard to tell. Why God chose for the woman now, whereas before giving birth was painless and only a source of joy. Now it's a mixed bag, as we say in English. Mixed bag. Okay, so a woman giving birth, she's very happy to have a child, but the process can be very painful. So maybe it's to make her remember the fall. I don't know. So let's move on. So Pedro, can you please read question 5 in English?
What might thy desire shall be to thy husband? Mean
Okay, that's husband.
husband.
Yeah, if it was an H-U-S-E, maybe it would be husband, but no, so it's husband.
Husband.
Okay, so again, it's a mysterious verse. It's a profound and mysterious verse. So God says, thy desire shall be to thy husband. What could that mean? Hard to tell. Let's go to the next question, because I think it's hard. Some questions in the Socratic method. That's what we're doing. Okay, you remember who Socrates was? A Greek philosopher. Well, we inherited from Socrates the Socratic method, which is asking one question after another in order to try to get to the truth. Okay, so in this class, we use the Socratic method to study the Bible sometimes. So the next question, Ellington, can you please read question 6 in English?
Is there anything wrong with a married or a wife to desire her husband?
Okay. What do you think?
I think not a problem.
Exactly. That's why the verse is so interesting. So no, there's nothing wrong within a marriage for a wife to desire her husband, or the husband to desire the wife. It's natural. That's a gift
Yes.
from God. Okay, but then this is a punishment. Well, let's think. Let's go further. So Monica, can you please read question 7?
If the object of her desire in this verse is not his body, what could it be?
Okay, so remember, God is giving a punishment to Eve and all women. And he's saying, and so we just together decided, well, the object of the wife's desire is not the husband's body. That's not the problem. That's not the punishment. Then what could be the object of her desire? If not the body, what is?
I found a commentary. I think it's very good online. It's by John Gill. I think he preached at the same church that Charles Spurgeon did 100 years before. And I found a
Wow.
commentary by him on this verse. Can I read it a little bit?
Sure. Okay, read it slowly.
Okay. It says that this is to be understood of her being solely at the will and pleasure of her husband, that whatever she desired should be referred to him, whether she should have her desire or not, or the thing she desired. It should be liable to be controlled by his will, which must determine it and to which she must be subject, as follows. And then it continues with the other parts of the verse.
Okay, and that sounds like a very valid interpretation. And so that sounds like he is implying that her desires are to be subjugated to her husband's desires. All right, so that in that sense, he has priority and she does not. Am I interpreting that correctly? What do you does that sound like what he's saying?
I think so. I think that the role of submissiveness,
Mhm.
but a little more intense. I think
A little more what?
a little more intense. I don't know
Yeah,
if it's
okay.
supposed to be a punishment.
Okay, so
Because I think submission is a
okay, sorry, that probably was me freezing. I agree, Emily, and I think that's a valid point. And essentially, if she is desiring kind of what the husband has, that is the same as my potential answer. And my potential answer is she's desiring his position. Okay. So in that sense, it's the same thing. So she has desires for what the husband's desire for what the husband has, or the husband. And anyway, so I think for me it's a little clearer that she is desirous of his position. It's not that she's desirous of his body. That's normal in the conjugal relation. Okay, that's normal. But in this case, it's a punishment because she is desirous, perhaps, of his leadership position. Okay, so let's continue, because then maybe we'll see if that possible interpretation makes sense. So, Emily, can you please read question 8?
What is the natural order between man and woman?
Okay, and this is a pretty basic question. And by the way, Emily, great homework to go and find a commentary by an English preacher before Spurgeon. So I appreciate that. How seriously you take this study, that you would go and find a commentary like that. That's terrific. So what do you think? So Pedro or Lucas, what is the natural order between man and woman? And do you know what I mean when I say natural order? For instance, who was created first? Adam or Eve? Who do you think was created first? It's Genesis chapter 2. But the easiest thing to remember, how was Eve created? Was she created from dust? Mm-mm.
I think they are discussing the question.
So, okay. Well, I think they froze. Okay, so
Not understand.
okay, no problem. So a question is, how was Eve created? Pedro, do you remember how was Eve created?
From the rib of Adam.
Adam, correct. And that implies
Adam.
who was created first? Adam or Eve?
Adam.
Correct. Okay. So the natural order, simply by order of birth, is man was born first and then, or created first, and then woman was created second. Okay. So that's part of the natural order. And what it implies is that the man has a certain priority. Okay. And we know from many stories in the Bible, the firstborn usually, not always, but usually has the blessings of the father. Okay, usually the first, called primogeniture in England. In it doesn't geniture. In the United States, we it was one of the English things that we mostly let go, but primogeniture is the idea that the firstborn son receives everything. All right, so but that's old. But anyway, so now, yes, Emily.
I would just say something very quick. I think this is the same, one of the reasons that Paul writes in Timothy, right? He first said, why a woman shouldn't preach in public is because first Adam was created and then Eve. And then after he says this, he talks about the fall, that the woman was deceived, but first he uses the order before the fall. So I think that's interesting. He's using that argument even
Absolutely.
after there was sin and curse in creation.
Agreed entirely, Emily, and very good point. So Apostle Paul is going back to the very basics when he says there is a natural order in responsibility and what we call headship. Okay, the Bible uses headship so that Jesus Christ has headship over man, over all mankind.
Mhm.
And specifically, Jesus Christ has headship over the man, over the husband, over the father, and the husband has headship over the wife. And so all of this is implied by natural order. Very good. Lucas, can you please read question 9 in English? Question 9.
How then is he shall rule over the punishment?
Very good. Okay, so remember, I like asking tough questions. So remember, God is giving punishments to Eve and all women because of the fall. So giving birth, labor will be painful. And then we believe he's saying that the woman, a punishment for the woman is that she will desire her husband's position. If you agree with my interpretation, a punishment. But if the natural order already is that husband has headship, then how can he shall rule over thee be a punishment? That's the natural order.
Oh, maybe because now because of sin, the woman is not as happy to be submissive.
Absolutely right. Bingo. Absolutely right, Emily. So the import of that question is exactly that. The punishment is she will resent it. Okay. Whereas before the fall, we don't believe that Eve had major resentment issues. Right? All right. About like, oh, I hated that Adam tells me to like do this and do that. Okay. And so it's a punishment because even it's the natural order, but she's going to resent it now. And so that is a challenge, apparently, for particularly unsaved women. Okay, so we're running late. We're having too much fun. So Pedro, can you please read Genesis 3:17 in English? Genesis 3:17.
And unto Adam he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life.
Very good, beautiful. E Adão disse: Porquanto deste ouvidos à voz da tua mulher, e comeste da árvore de que te ordenei, dizendo: Não comerás dela, maldita é a terra por causa de ti. Com dor comerás dela todos os dias da tua vida. Ouch. Okay, so Ellington, can you please read question 10 in English?
Should a husband never hearken unto the voice of fine wife?
Okay, so it's a different word, hearken. So to hark is the same as to listen. Now, this question is a little bit of a joke. Should a husband never listen to the voice of his wife?
Mm,
Mm,
No.
No. Okay, that would be silly. Okay, so don't even think of it. But God is saying in this instance, Adam should not have listened to the voice of his wife in this one instance. Right? He shouldn't have listened to her. He shouldn't have believed her. He should have said, stop. Okay, another way to look at it, let's go to the Monica, can you please read question 11 in English?
What does it mean in this case?
Okay, so what do you think? So hearkening unto the voice of thy wife, by hearkening unto the voice of his wife, whose voice did Adam not hearken to?
God's voice.
Absolutely right. Okay, so implied in this is you listened to your wife and you didn't listen to me, God is saying. All right, so again, how important is it we always listen to God's voice? Emily, can you please read question 12 in English?
What might cursed is the ground mean?
Okay, so remember, it just said, and it said this towards the end, cursed is the ground for thy sake. All right, so remember, this is now Adam's punishment, and through Adam, all men. So what do you think cursed? What is the ground? What might that mean?
That is under the curse of sin, and that all creation awaits for. Like it says, I'm paraphrasing, but there's a verse that talks about all creation groaning, awaiting
Exactly right. Groaning.
groaning
To be freed from what?
from the curse.
Okay, and what is the curse specifically?
The curse under sin? I don't know.
Okay, what's the result of sin? The curse of sin is
Oh, death.
death.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so exactly right. So the implication here, when God says, cursed is the ground for thy sake, it's not just that the ground will be infertile, difficult to harvest, to soil, to planting will be less easy, farming will be less. It's not that the soil will be not as fertile. It's that the ground is cursed, and it's now cursed with the curse of sin, which is death. And so the implication is, if all ground is cursed, then death has entered all creation. Okay, remember, Adam was made from what? He was made from
The dust of the earth.
exactly. So if the elements, so in that sense, all creation, including Adam, all the animals, they're all made from likely the ground, from the dust of the earth. So it's the basic elements. And if they are cursed, then everything is cursed. Ouch. Okay, so let's finish up. And so, okay, Lucas, Pedro, can you please read Genesis 3:18 to 19 in English?
Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweet of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground, for out of it wast thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return.
Wow, what another incredible verse. What God says. Okay, incredible. Let me try this in Portuguese. Espinhos e cardos também te produzirá, e comerás a erva do campo. No suor do teu rosto comerás o teu pão, até que te tornas a terra, porque dele foste tomado, porquanto és pó, e em pó te tornarás. And oh, Pedro, one correction in your English. In the second line, you said in the sweet of thy face. But if there was two E's, it would be sweet. But with an EA, it's sweat. Okay. Sweat. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Another big verse. And we're going to discuss this a little more next time. But let's go. We'll finish up. Ellington, can you please read question 13 in English?
Which punishment sounds worse, and why is that so?
Okay, worse. Sounds worse.
Worse.
Okay, so now I don't want all my Brazilian brothers and sisters to be completely fit. It's like, they both are pretty bad. Okay, let's look at which punishment sounds worse? Eve's? Adam's. Okay, thank you, Emily.
Because he was
why?
responsible.
And why does Adam sound worse?
Because he was responsible.
Okay, but why do you think it's worse? In what ways? What part of his punishment sounds worse?
I think overall his punishment sounds worse, that he will die and return to the earth.
Yeah. Well, but that's going to be true for Eve as well. So we know that actually it's a punishment, but you're true. Then the actual, the sort of the death punishment was placed on Adam's shoulders, but it's for all mankind. So I agree with you entirely.
And then his work is going to be heavy now. I think Pedro is going to say something, was gonna say something.
Go, Pedro.
Adam was not deceived.
Yeah. And that's why his punishment is worse. I agree. But let's look at the punishment. So remember, Eve's punishments are when she gives birth, she's going to experience pain. Does a woman give birth every day? No. Okay. Every 9 months. All right. Is the most rapid. Okay. And her punishment, and it's not an easy punishment, is that she will apparently desire the position of her husband. And part of the punishment is she will resent his continuing to rule over her. And those are kind of, let's be honest, those are kind of like psychological problems, right? That she's not emotionally happy. She's not like content with her position in the natural order and in God's creation. So she's like fighting against it. Okay, that's not good, but it also it's not terrible. But Adam's, okay, in the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, and thou shalt eat of the herb of the field. The implication is now for Adam to bring food to the table, it's going to be a lot of work every day, hard work, sweating. So physically, he's going to feel this punishment every day of his life. And as Emily said also, the curse of death was given through Adam for all, not just mankind, but all of creation. And so as it says, for dust thou art, and unto dust. Oh, well, let's go to the last question. And this will be, Monica, can you please read question 14?
What does unto dust shalt thou return mean?
Okay, so let me ask Pedro or Lucas, what do you think unto dust thou shalt return? So what does returning to dust mean?
Death.
Yes. And what part of death? So remember, it says, for dust thou art. Because as we just said, Adam was created how? God took the dust and he breathed life into it, boom, and created Adam. So Adam came from dust. And now unto dust thou shalt return. Does that mean that Adam or men, like, poof, they blow up like a balloon and a bunch of dust comes out?
Ooh.
No. So how does a man turn, and a woman, how does a man turn into dust?
Decaying process.
Yeah, okay. He decomposes. When a body is put into when a dead body is put into the earth or put into a tomb, what happens? It starts to decompose, to decay. Okay, it's a grim subject, but that is how our bodies after death return to dust. You know, the bones, I'm not sure, it takes a long time for bones to turn to dust. That's the one thing I'm not sure of. Okay, but you get the point. We all return to dust because of the curse, the death curse. Okay, so excellent class. Any questions in English before we turn off the recording? So, okay, we're going to stop.